Hey guys, it's Trent again. Thanks for stopping back. Today I'm going to be tying for you the Great Blubino. Little thing that I've been working on is trying to learn and the best way to do some of these wire weaves and also some of these woven nymphs. It's the same type of weave. And I came up, with this little color combination. I don't have going through my box, I don't have a lot of bombers, so I decided to make something that might be able to get me down, and this certainly has the weight to do it. You know, what we're looking at here mostly is this wire weave, and just to give you a little look on what those knots look like at the bottom of the bug. Hopefully my vise isn't in the way for you to see that. It's going to be the finished product. So let's get started here. I'll give you a materials list and we'll go through that. We'll get a hook and a vise. Okay, a couple different things that we're looking at here. First, the hook that we have is an Orvis size 10 check nymph hook. I had to go with something bigger just because of the bead. What I have on the front of that is FHO Outdoors bug band. I actually bought these with another intention of using them, and found out that most of the beads that I have here at home are slotted beads, and it's not really set up for this type of a product. I don't know if you can make it out, but there's like a little nipple on the front of this that is supposed to go into the back of a standard bead, and obviously isn't going to work with a slotted bead. There's nowhere for that little nipple to go. So I thought, oh hell, I'll just reverse this, and kind of makes the bug look like it's got a bright blue head, using the bead as a thorax. The bead that I have, FHO Outdoors, 4.5 ml in a Slate Blue. For the body that we're going to be tying today, it's going to be an all wire body. Here I have UTC Ultra Wire. This is in medium. This is in an awesome color, gunmetal blue. For the ribbing, I have Semperfli, the 0.2 in Chartreuse. This is a great product, great color. Another Semperfli product here is this micro gel core, this micro Fritz. This is in Peacock, and obviously UV Loon. And thanks to my buddy Doug up at PA Fly Company. Had this new company, UV2. This is just a ring neck tail, but Kingfisher blue, and the color works out perfect. Thank you, Doug. And as far as the thread we're using, just a Nanosilk here. It doesn't really matter what color it is. I had a lot of this olive. You're not going to see any of it in the finished product anyway. So let's get started. What we're going to do first is tie on this tail. So we're going to wind this thread the whole way down to just about the drop off point in that bend. Turn this off. Not really looking for a lot of fibers on here, but basically a body's length is what we're looking for. Just tidy those up, make sure they stay in the right spot. Good. I like to keep these on the top of the hook as best that you can as you're tying this down. It is important because in the faster water, these tails can act as a rudder. And if you got them off to one side, the bug just not going to float right. So that last wrap, I always try to pull it back so that it spreads these tails out a little bit. Go back up to the top. Get off the excess. Now on these wire weaves, you know, I've tried half a dozen different ways and tried to make my own mistakes and everything along that line. And one of the most important things that I found is keeping your wires, when you tie them in, on the correct side of the hook. Especially with the ones that you're weaving with. You want that to go down almost to the tail. Mostly because tying in those first couple little knots on your weave, if you don't have them in the right spot, the weave can basically start in the wrong spot, and makes trying to tidy things up there a little bit more difficult. So I got one on each side of the hook there. I'm going to take our blue wire, stick this in the bead here. I'm going to keep this one on top of the hook. It's going to be wrapping around both of the bottom wires. And this one, I'll tie down just a touch further into the tail there, so you don't create a bump. I'm going to tie a whip finish there so that I can use this rotary vise. These first couple wraps I normally do by hand, just so that I can keep them nice and tight before using the rotary vise, so that the rest of the wraps will just stack up real nice up against it. I'm going to wrap this the whole way up to the bead. Another important thing for those, where to place those wires is everything that you wrap with this wire kind of shows all your mistakes. So you do want to make sure that that underbody is, consistent. Because most fish, you're just seeing a profile, flash of color. And if it looks a little bit off, that's usually what's going to get you a refusal. Okay, take that right up to the bead like that. Wrap this around here, and then we'll secure this bead in the right spot. It's kind of hanging in the right spot for me. And I like to clip these off just because I don't like to waste material. That way I can use, kind of what's left over on the next bug. An important thing also, is where your beads are lying on the hook. You want to make sure that if you do have a slotted bead, that you keep the hole up, pointing up. You can kind of see how the majority of the bead is below the horizon of the body. That'll make it float a certain direction, or sink a different way, as opposed to having the heavy part of the bead on the high side, like you see a lot of these teardrop weights that guys are using. And the design of that is, so that the bug floats upside down, sinks upside down too. It's amazing how that works. Got a little fuzzy in here. Okay, so next thing, now that we have that in there, I'm gonna go ahead and do a whip finish and cut this off. Now the next step is kind of what I bounced up against, trying to find a way to make this exoskeleton, which is pretty much what we're creating here, you know, with these with this weave. How to make it gain some purchase and, you know, stay where it's supposed to. To use a body that is softer, you know, like you know, if you were to, you know, dub a body on, it's a lot easier to do that weave because it stays there. When I first started trying these wire weaves, I like the thinner look, you know, of the wire. If you try and pull too hard on the wires, it will actually go in between the spaces on your body wire, and you lose the entire effect of, you know, what you're trying to do. So the easiest thing that I came up with was just to apply some UV stuff to the wire body. That has pluses and minuses. The minus is that when this UV hardens, it's very slippery. So when you're trying to make those weaves and get those knots aligned and everything along that line, your outside wires don't have anything to grab a hold of. The nice thing is if you can get the weave on there, you know, with moderate tension, at the end, you can adjust them. So if your lines don't work upright or your knots don't work upright, you can still have a little bit of leeway in, you know, your finished product. I'll cook that for a second or two. Okay, so when we're doing this weave, a number of different ways that you can go about it. Obviously, you can leave your vise as is and try to tie that up. It is harder to see the far side of the hook to make sure that your knots are lined up. The easiest way that I found is to turn the bug completely upside down, turn the vise so that it's facing you, and you can see where those knots are lining up on the bottom. If you prefer to have the knots on the top and create that little bit different look, obviously, you know, you want to have the bug facing up so you can see the line up on the knots. And I'll show you a couple flies that we had, you know, tied up differently. If you look at this one, you can kind of see there's little triangles that are on the back. This one, you can kind of see the knots on the top are a little different. And if you're looking at the back, that's kind of what the bottom of it looks like. So if you want to create normal segmentation, do your knots on the bottom. If you want to flip it, because that's the mood you're in, you know, just flip your fly around and tie your knots on the top. All depends on what kind of look you're looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and get the camera set up, turn this vise around, and we'll be right back. Thanks. Okay guys, for description's sake, we're going to talk about the top wire being on the top side of the finished bug, the bottom wire on the bottom of the bug. And for this weave here, got two different sides of the equation. You're going to have the bottom wire that stays on the bottom. The top wire is going to be the one that travels. It's going to be going underneath the hook, over your bottom wire, and then back and forth across. When we start to do this, the hardest thing to do is to line up your knots. So we want to go over this wire and then under the hook with the top wire. And if you pull on the wrong side, you'll see, like right here, see how that knot slips? So you want to make sure that you keep tension on your bottom wire as you're wrapping the top wire under the bug and over the bottom wire. You just continue to do this. This is somewhat open spacing on this look. A real weave is super tight. You only see the knots in the finished product. They're not as pronounced. Just keep tension on that bottom wire and that'll help you line those up. I'm going to take this the whole way up to the bead. Try to get in as many wraps as you can. All depends on the spacing that you want. But on that last knot, I always try to keep that tension and then take it over the top, and then I'll twist those two wires a little bit before tying them off. Okay, we're back here on the right side of the vise. It's actually turned out pretty good. You can see how on the back I just had, it almost looks like normal segmentation, just lines straight across the body there. On the opposite side, let me try to adjust this hook so we can see a little bit better. You can kind of see how the knots are basically on the bottom, on the sides, but we're creating these little triangles that are in here. And that's the neat thing about this look. If your fly is going to be sinking, you know, in the right orientation, similar to what we're tying it, and you want that look on the bottom. I mean, can a fish really see that? Yes. I'm not a fish, so, but it looks cool. So what we're going to do next, at the very end of this, like I said, we clip this off. Gonna get my thread back on. Fly's almost done here. And I'll show you some pictures of some of the other ones I've done. I like the look of this as with the pheasant tail, but I had tied a number of these with some peacock, if you didn't notice that on the other side. Looks pretty good with that too. A little bit more natural with, you know, pheasant tail look. Okay. I'll bend these wires up so that they're up into the slot on the bead. Okay, next thing is this Semperfli gel core micro Fritz. This stuff, I've been loving it. Just makes everything so easy as far as, you know, tying in collars, on the perdigons, on everything, you know, even for body use. They have a couple different sizes. Colors are getting better, and yeah, I'm excited for more of that. All we need to do with this is just wrap it around. Just make sure you stay on the inside of your tying thread. And all I do is I just wrap this around the edge of the bead so everything starts to stack up there. And I'll show you a little trick with this Nanosilk. You don't need a lot of this, but I try to get it almost as high as the bead. Okay, and I'm just gonna cross over this, tie this off, and I'll show you what we're running into with this Nanosilk. You can keep the tension on it and just wrap this Nanosilk down around the edge of the bead. You create almost like a little separation, like a gap in here, which is, this is going to be the thorax, this is the head. Creates that little, we can call it a separation. Wrap that down around there a couple more times, and you can see that separation a little bit more. Just gives it a good profile. And all we're going to do is whip finish. Cut that off. And there's our finished product, boys and girls. This one turned out pretty good. And I guess we'll see if it catches fish. Okay guys, here's a closer look. If you put the knots on the bottom, you're gonna see this fly to where it's almost like normal segmentation. You can't really see too much difference, you know, like if you were gonna wrap it with regular wire. But on the other side, if you put the knots on the top, you're gonna get kind of a staggered look, you know. And the bottom of this fly obviously looks like the top of this fly, and vice versa. So maybe we can see that. See how it's got like a staggered look in it? Different triangles. So whatever your preference.